Welcome back to the Blue Chip Academy podcast, empowering the next generation of leaders by equipping them with the detailed blueprint to success while using sports as our catalyst. We got a special guest, former PSU, a letterman, and director of football operations at UConn. Let's welcome Andrew Goodman. Welcome to the Blue Chip Academy, man.
Yo, it's great to be here. What's up, jking?
Happy to have you here, man. My man.
Great to see you.
No doubt. My man, Goody, man. We worked together at Penn State. He kind of handled the recruiting from the logistics and all the aspects, the brains behind the operation. We were there, you know what I'm saying? We were dealing with players and all that good stuff. So we got a great, unique perspective on the ecosystem. You know what I mean? Playing at Penn State with us and transitioning out, working in different positions in the NFL at Princeton and Penn State, Brown, and now at the University of UConn. University of UConn, is that right? No, it's UConn.
University of Connecticut.
University of Connecticut, man. There we go.
There we go.
Where? I'm not going to ask that. I was going to say where in UConn, where in Connecticut is it?
We are like right in the middle. Storrs, Connecticut.
Storrs, Connecticut.
Storrs, Connecticut. It's a small town about 30 minutes east of Hartford.
Okay. Hartford.
About like 2.5.
The town of Chris Baker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most
Throwing it
definitely.
back.
I love Connecticut, man. When I was at the XFL, I lived in Stamford and like right on the border of Greenwich. And I was like,
you're a Connecticut guy before me.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, it was a great thing. Had some great oysters anytime. Had the beaches, 35-minute train ride to Manhattan, Grand Central Station. You know what I mean? It was a great little thing, man. So let's jump into it. It's like, where's the affinity of the sports business? Like, just talk to me a little bit. You're coming from Philly. So let's talk about the recruiting process a little bit. Like, how was your experience or just exposure to that process?
Well, so this was back in, I would say, 2007. So it was a way different time. The camp circuits wasn't really a thing. So getting exposure was tough. It was all about, how your high school head coach, who's he connected with, who can he get you exposure to. So me being a late bloomer and playing football, my first year varsity was my junior year in 2007. So I'm behind the game. I'm so new to it, which I think a lot of people can be new to this whole process. So education is huge, and I didn't have that education. So, junior year, I'm playing 3 sports in high school. George Washington, shout out to the Eagles.
Philly ball.
So I'm playing 3 sports. I don't know which one I'm going to pick. I don't even think playing at the next level is an option.
Which 3 sports was it?
Basketball, football, and baseball.
3 ball sports. Good hand-eye coordination.
Yes, sir. So, no track, though. I wasn't that fast. So senior year comes around. I have a big role on the offense. We balled out a little bit. We're still running the wing T. I'm playing tight end. I'm 175. I should be playing receiver, but we were an old school program. We won games doing that way. So, I kind of, when my number was called, I kind of dominated, averaged like 25 yards a catch but I had 25 catches. Like it wasn't, so I'm not a breakthrough player or anything like that, but, I have some small bites, some small schools on the East Coast. And then I have like a opportunity, to OV at Lafayette, which is a private school in the, Patriot League. They ended up canceling on me before I went on a visit, so I never went on an OV.
The realities of the recruiting process.
Mm-hmm. I have some angst against them because of that. I haven't forgot, but so at that point, I'm kind of lost. I don't know what I want to do. I know Penn State. I had my brother, my dad, my aunt. I'm a Penn State family, so I was ready to hang up the cleats. Just go there as a student. But that whole time, as I brought up before, my head coach is working in the background. And at the time, we had a major D lineman getting recruited all over. Sharif Floyd ended up being a first-round pick to the Vikings. He's at Florida now. He played at Florida. He's a GA for Spence.
Okay.
Down there.
Spence,
so
man. Wild dogs.
Shout out to Spence. So that was kind of my back channel in because they were recruiting him. Penn State, LJ was recruiting him.
Okay.
My head coach threw my name out there. I had a 4.0. Like it made sense. I had the ability to be a walk on. So I, after basketball practice one day, I had a message on my phone like from Ron Vanderlyn, the linebackers coach, LBU. He's like, "How would you like to walk on?" I'm like, "Is this real? Is this real?" And that was the whole process because I didn't know.
What time of the
I'm
year
like,
was it
yeah,
when you got that call? When he said, like, you want to walk on?
Yeah, this was January. This was like towards the end of January.
Okay, so you're like, you don't really know what's going on. You're like, man, Lafayette cancels on me, and then now Vandy hits you like, hey, man, you want to walk on that Penn State?
Vandy hits me up. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I went to the blue-white game that April, and I'm on campus that summer.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess you're right because you're not really looking forward to like a signing day or anything of that nature because
I don't have a signing day. I'm just going up like everything as a walk-on just – and they kind of kept me in the dark. I don't know if it was by design, but, I mean, it's kind of tough being a walk-on. You don't know when your next meal's coming. You don't know if you're going to get cut the next semester. You don't know how the roster works. You're kind of expendable. They don't have any money tied up in you as a scholarship. So, with that same mindset, I always tell myself, get good grades, like find value. How can you bring value to the team? Whether it's boosting your GPA, like giving the defense a good look, like you got to find your value. You can't give them a reason to hold anything against you. You just got to continue to be positive, bring the best out of everybody around you. So that was kind of the mindset I had.
So, yeah, you jumped into it because, I mean, that's interesting because, I mean, you had the mentality of an NFL player, to be completely honest. Like, I don't know what's coming tomorrow. I might get cut. Like, I need to bring value. And that's, like, you entered that 18, 17 years old, getting into college. Because I think a lot of people see walk-ons, whether they're afraid of taking that route of being a walk-on or not really understanding that you can make something happen as a walk-on or even how to approach it. But there's some real life difficulties when you're going through it because the reality of being a walk-on hits you in the face when you get to school, right? Like when you're going through that whole process. And
well, every single day. I mean, my first summer, I'm at the 6 a.m. workouts with everybody. Like, it was funny. Like, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anybody on the team. I come in there. I'm looking at the biggest dudes I've ever seen. I see Daryl Clark. He's stretching. I had no idea what position. I thought he played D line.
I would have thought he played
quarterback.
Outside linebacker.
I know.
Shout out D. Clark.
Bro, I was shell shocked. So I'm doing summer workouts for 6 weeks. Camp's coming up next. I don't know if I'm going to camp. And then they basically, no, I'm not going to camp. And then I go home for a couple weeks, come back in the fall. Like, that's just how it works. Like, I don't know if I'm having a locker there. Like, I just kept. You got to stay hungry. Just you take what they're going to give you. There just was no communication.
I mean, and that's exactly how it kind of operates, even working on the other side, because like everyone's paying attention to the scholarship players, and I don't even think the scholarship players know exactly what the walkers are going through. Like, the other players when you were like leaving, like they say, "Hey, where were you? Like, why weren't you in camp? Like, did you get any of those questions when you got back?"
Yeah, they put it on me. I'm like, because I wasn't invited. Like, I wasn't in the 105. Like, that's just how it goes. But, I mean, it's a hard pill to swallow.
Just for the listeners, the 105 is, you can take 105 players to camp. I know everyone thinks that in college, there's a million people in the field, but there's only a 105 limit to get into camp. So that's 85 plus, what was that, another 30 guys? Or 20?
I think nowadays you can really bring in whoever you want.
Yeah. So there's no max.
Back then. There's no max, but back then there was 105, so 85 scholarships. That's 20 walk-ons. So I was not in that 20 freshman year.
Would that became a goal after that? Like, man, I'm going to camp from here on
out. Yeah, that burned me. It's like you work your tail off all year, and like that's the season. August, like it's camp time. I want to be there. I want to be in that.
I think more scholarship players should know what walk-ons go through just to understand essentially how it can be, right? How it can go for certain players. And because sometimes, I mean, the scholarship route, there's different opportunities afforded to you. You know, you're being showered with attention. Sometimes you get hit with the reality of like, oh, I'm not as valuable as they said I was. But you're coming in with that mentality. It's like, I have to provide value. I got to stay here. I got to make the most of it.
They don't value anything.
Yeah. And
scholarship players, they will gain such a great perspective from hearing the point of view of a walk-on. Like, and we couldn't even eat with the team at that time too. Now everybody eats at training table. We couldn't eat. Coach Paterno and Penn State, they did do a good job of keeping us in the same locker room. Like, these are basic expectations these days, but back then, like, I heard that was kind of rare to integrate the walk-ons with the rest of the team.
When we got to Penn State, remember we weren't even together with the rest of the team. Like, there was like the freshman locker room up back in the corner. Like, so we had the block. Like, we were just like over in the the projects back there when everybody was coming in. You had all the old guys wiping the dirt off. Like, yo, man, what's up with this?
Yep, my locker was right next to the door. My first locker.
No, that's true, man. Because
it's humble though, humble beginnings. Like,
you pointed out something, the same thing. Like, Dion Butler said the same thing. So did Jordan Norwood, and it's like it showed that guys coming in, and it's funny that you say that because even Paul Posluszny, he said the same thing in terms of taking advantage of all the opportunities that were coming in, but it's more about the perspective of, I need to take advantage of this, or this place is going to give me something, and it's like really having that mutual respect of where you're going into. Because it's a business, like, and sometimes a lot of players that are going through this process, like, oh, they love me, I'm going to go here, I'm going to do this because the fans, and I got to, and it's like, really, it's a business relationship. Like, you provide value and they provide value, right? And like, obviously, now that you can get NIL money and different things of that nature, it's pretty important to make sure that you're making the right decisions when you get there. Were you considering any other schools, or did any other schools come in to ask you to walk on?
Not at that time, no. No, I was ready. I was not going to play. Like, who knows what my life would have been like now that I've been in the industry like 9 years now. Like, who knows where I'd be if I didn't have that opportunity at Penn State to play.
I loved it.
The whole trajectory of everything. Yeah, we might not be talking right now.
That's true, man. Using sports as a catalyst to a career that you can bank on. Because,
no doubt.
Like, you started off in high school. I mean, I'm sure there were a lot of people that you kind of came up with through your recruiting class. I don't know what they're doing, but now, a DFO at a Division I program right now, and not to say that, I mean, how things go, but like when you see the different opportunities that you can maneuver and take advantage of, I mean, it's extremely important. And I think it's good for scholarship athletes to operate in that too. But it's always interesting to hear the different mentalities of, like, when you're going through the recruiting process, whether you're looking at other people getting offers or how you're coming in versus like being a level of grace, a little, I mean, I say gracious or have some level of gratitude when you get there. Like, oh, this is what I need to provide versus this place owes me this or I need that.
Right.
And like, not to be like a square about it, but like there is definitely that piece. Cause like I had that as a little bit as a scholarship athlete, but it was,
of course,
I'm going to play. And it was like, I'm going to be, I mean, I always attributed to being a coach's kid, right? Like when you're growing up and if we lose, I see how it affects my dad, or it's like, okay, if I don't do my job, this might happen, or so it's like, no, this isn't just a one-way show. Like, no, you have something to provide here. So like even coming in, like, no, I need to provide something. Like I'm playing both ways my freshman year. Like I'm just not happy to be here. I mean, my dad used to say, it's so funny. I'll tell a quick story. It was I remember being a kid watching the tournament, the NCAA tournament. The basketball joint. And I remember it was the Kansas City Jayhawks, and all the guys were getting hyped, like jumping around, like, oh, getting ready to play. And then there was a guy in the back who was just kind of like, yeah. Like,
he wasn't
like I'm just happy to be here. I'm just happy to be here. And he remember telling me like, yo, just never go anywhere. Just like happy to be there. Like you're there to contribute and do everything. So like that's always been a thing. Like no matter what room go in, no matter what meeting it is, it's like not just happy to be here. Like what value are you providing in this situation, like to make the ball move forward?
Right. You got to be where your feet are, and you got to come in like with some humility, because once you get on campus, you start from zero. Like, yeah, there might be some expectations. Oh, maybe, the coaching staff expects you to play, but it's only an expectation. You have to work, and you have to prove to everybody that you can be trustworthy, reliable, and be productive. You got to come in and earn all that and grow. Like,
so you didn't really go through anything. Did you know what you wanted to study when you got to Penn State? Because I mean, you said you already
no.
So you just were going and got the
business.
Call, and that was it, business.
I just wanted to go to Penn State. My older brother was a senior at the time. I knew I wanted to study business. It was a process elimination. I got into supply chain and logistics, which kind of leveraged that into football, and now I'm running the operations.
Logistics and operations in football, man. That's a great.
Yeah,
I mean, so I love that you said it was a supply chain. So when guys are thinking about different opportunities, man, there's a lot of value in supply chain and logistics and all those good things. A lot of great careers out there too, man. Shout out
absolutely.
That good industry. So when you got to Penn State, what was the major like wake up of like, man, this is a real business?
So walking in, that locker room was just different. I don't think I've seen a locker room like that. It was AQ Shipley, the older old linemen. Now they were like grown ass men when I was there. I'm like, I didn't know how old they were. Like they were just so mature in like the leadership that they showed. I didn't want to walk into the wrong locker. I didn't want to. I just minded my own business. Like it was AQ, Rich Orenberger. Darryl Clark had some leadership, and then Derek Williams, Deion Butler, Norwood. Like those guys were just a class above. I've never seen senior leadership like that. And Sean Lee, those guys, they didn't even talk about it, but they were about it. You just felt their presence. Josh Gaines was another one. Those guys were really just different. So that was a wake up call. And just watching the way they worked in the weight room, like they went about their business in a way I've never seen. Like they flipped the switch when you're in the weight room, when they're on the field doing workouts. Like they are all business, and it was put up or shut up. Like you got to match that intensity.
And it's interesting because that's the senior group. I mean, that's my class. I left early, so I actually wasn't there when you guys got. That was in the NFL because
right.
I was like, I'm out of here. But anyway, but with that being said, I thought I had the same type of mentality when I got there with like Mike Robb and Alan Zamitis and even Puzz and those guys, and like the level of leadership that they showed. But they were coming out of a dark age. So like the leadership was there, but there was like anger with the leadership, right? Like there was a little bit of like, this is how we do it. Like we're not messing up this last year. And like the group of guys that you're referring to that kind of knew what it was, like they kind of won the whole time that they were there. And so like the last two seasons, I remember, I think there was like 9-4, 10 and something, but there were some disappointing losses in there. And I remember like it was like that last one was like, look, we got to maximize this season. I can only imagine, just thinking of like the collective group of guys that were there. Cause that's the Rose Bowl year, right? 2008.
Yeah, it's the Rose Bowl. I got the photo up here in my office. Yeah, Mark Rubin. I'm looking at the first line of dudes. Scarrato, Lydell Sargent, Tony Davis,
yeah,
Ty Sales, yeah. Shout out to all those dudes. But I mean, seeing that group, they'll always be impressionable to me because like that was the best example of senior leadership and locker room leadership I've ever seen, I've ever experienced coming into there. Like you confirmed to those dudes, the coaches basically, gave the leadership responsibilities to them. Like what the coaches wanted ran through them, and they embodied the culture. They were culture drivers, like without a doubt. And you follow their lead. That's what it was. I mean, that's the most powerful type of leadership that I've ever seen. And when your players are embodying it and your seniors are embodying it, like everybody follows in line.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that because like it even shaped how I viewed different cultures when I got to the NFL or even when I started working in this sport. Looking at the culture of the team, looking at the personalities of the team, or just going through the process because I felt that was something different, like the way that things operated because obviously Joe Paterno was there for a long time, so there was a level of culture that was able to be set, whether it was the type of players that came in, type of mentality that people had. And I always tell people like there's a misconception sometimes about how it was at Penn State, just in the sense of, we had to have clean shaved hair and all that. Everything was 15 minutes early for everything. But it was within that scope, like we had dudes, you know what I mean? Like there was cats that, it was some real cats in that in the locker room, like the whole time, and just how the culture kind of policed itself. Like there's certain things that just couldn't survive. And so like using that, when you started to transition even into the sport, I mean, we'll get a little bit into it, but we start transitioning, working into more of the direct, like football operations aspect, dealing with the head coach and like whether it's recruiting and looking at different players. Did you kind of sense, yourself using that group of guys when you got there to Penn State as a freshman as a measuring stick for like the teams that you were putting together or the staffs that you were working for?
I guess from a personal standpoint, it was all about consistency and having a standard, believing in you just being consistent in showing up every day and putting your best efforts forward and not changing up. Like, don't change who you are for anybody else. Just trying to do the right thing and putting all your efforts into whatever your head coach wants or whatever the team needs. And it was always about staying consistent and keep being that same person who's trustworthy, reliable, and who's going to give it his all every day, and like never changing up, and like having the entire staff know who that person is. Like, you can count on them. So like I'm still that guy every day. Like, it's simple. Like, that's the thing at Penn State. Like, there's only a couple rules that you had to follow, but you could never break those parameters. And that's what it was. That's what I've learned looking back now. Don't change up. Don't try to be anybody else. You just be who you are and do the certain couple things, and success will catch up to you.
That's a great point, man. Because like even when I transitioned out of the NFL, hit a down slope, whether it's trying to get in the sport, and everyone goes to like the depressive state when they're leaving the sport to try to figure out what's next. And when it got back to the bare bones of everything, it was like, all right, what would I have done at Penn State? All right, 10 minutes early here, I got to do this. And there's like a stepping stone and blocks of putting it back together. And it wasn't until that moment where I realized all the different things in that culture in which it was. Because you're right. People would think it seemed like when we were there, we had a lot of rules, or it was like whatever the rules were. But it was only like 4 or 5, like 10 minutes early, go to breakfast. And then you started realizing like how, different disciplinary actions were dealt with. And like guys had a chance to learn, whether even if you got kicked out or whatever that may be, there was like a level of respect still in place. Like those are guys had a chance to grow into men, like legitimately, and like grow into themselves. Whether you see like everybody that kind of came from Penn State having like a thread line there's some similarities, but very different individuals, like across the board.
And we always talk about it too, like our alums, like who played there. I mean, they're different cats. Like Penn State, like everyone's pretty different, but there's like a common bond of similar personalities. Like there's some common traits that are there, and I think it's like, I don't know, it's just like being a man, like being super like committed to, I don't know, like thriving in life.
I think that's what
corny, but it's like attacking life.
I think that's exactly what it is. I mean, because even Andy, shout out to Andy Frank, but like he used to break down players and say the 50-50 guys versus 70-80 guys, whether it's like guys that want the full 50 football, 50 real life, and just like what type of player are you bringing into the locker room? And I was just like, I mean, everybody that came to Penn State wanted to be like the best overall version of themselves. And if they didn't, it wasn't cool to not do it amongst the culture. Like it wasn't like a place where it was cool to have bad grades, or like if you're getting called out to like miss class, it wasn't like a culture that was like, man, he's tripping. Like you do what I was like, you ain't going to class, dog. Like what are you doing? Like,
you had to be the total package. I think that you had to be well-rounded. I think that's the common traits of a Penn State player. You had to have it all, like on and off the field, just be a complete person.
No, that's true. And I think that carries with the brand from guys that leave, whether it's talking to my personnel friends, and like it's interesting when you talk to personnel people or professionals that work in the NFL, and they have their mentality of what a player from this school operates like, whether it's Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama. Talking to him about Alabama kid, like, you talk to a kid from Alabama, he's going to be NFL ready. I remember we drafted this kid, Marquise Johnson, in St. Louis. Shout out Marquise, but he came in, he was like a 7th round pick, and like coming from Penn State, we had a lot of talent, but like our defenses weren't super exotic. We just had a lot of talent. You know what I mean? Going through the process, Tomlin rushing, drop, single high safety. So getting into the league, there was a little bit of a learning curve of me learning the different defenses. I understood the X's and O's, but just to operate in it, playing in the middle, playing nickel, all the different multiple coverages. That's what I think Manny Diaz and those guys do such a great job or just Penn State in general now, it's just like the multiple looks. You see the DBs going first round with Joey Porter. And he's going to go first round, but like just the different style of play on defense. But I remember getting to the NFL, I was getting this kid. I mean, when I tell you he was like so sharp from like the X and O standpoint walking in, I was like, what are y'all? What are they teaching y'all down there? Like, what are y'all going over?
Yeah.
It was like, because they were putting in like new concepts where guys that have been there for 3, 4, 5 years, they were like trying to learn it. And he was like, oh, we did this against in the playoffs. We did this. And I'm like, oh, y'all did? Like, it's like, you know what I mean? So, but just saying that, like, everyone has like a different, like even the NFL, like when they're going through that talent acquisition process, they have their own biases of what a player is going to be like coming from whatever school. And sometimes it works against you, because it worked against me a little bit at playing corner, because at that time we didn't produce many top end corners. Like, just for whatever, I mean, we just didn't, and we like side shuffled, and so I got a lot of heat of that going through the process. Like, yo, you guys, why'd you go there? Like, why didn't you go there? I'm like, hence lockdown you. I came back with vengeance. Like, oh, we're gonna get this corrected. So
I know, yeah, we did.
So, with that being said, when you get done with football and all that good stuff, like, when did you know you wanted to work in football?
Yeah, so originally, like, I had a job at in logistics, Toys R Us headquarters back before they went out of business. I saw the writing on the wall.
I didn't know that.
Anyway,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I was living in Hoboken, New Jersey, and then working in Wayne. Massive campus. It was a beautiful place.
Toys R Us. That was a big company, huge company.
Oh yeah,
that was the toy spot.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm like 6 weeks into it. I'm in a cube with a couple other people. And I'm just like, this isn't for me. Like, I had the itch like 6 weeks into it, honestly. I knew I needed to get back into the game. I wanted to coach originally. So you know how it's so, once you're out, it's so hard to get back in into the game. So ended up taking me 2 years to get back in. I was at Toys R Us for a year. I moved back to Philly, worked at Mastery Charter North for the head coach who was my position coach in high school. So I worked at practice from 3 to 6 p.m. I worked the night shift for a transportation company. Worked like 9 to 7 p.m. to a.m. Slept during the day, woke up, and coached. I did that for a season.
Oh, wow.
Just so I could get my foot back in the door. Yeah.
Oh, snap. So, guys listening, when you got to jump into football, that's a great, I love that you said that. That's what you had to do to get back in, because sometimes, I mean, I think players should make an easier transition, and there's some maturation or some molding that needs to happen before you jump into it, because there's a transition from a player to operations director, or even working in personnel. It's just, or even a coach, to be completely honest, because I don't think people realize like a coach is an executive. Like, you have a lot of office administrative work.
Much.
It's a lot of stuff. But to take that step to get into football is always like a step backwards a little bit, because I came from corporate America, man. I'm not going to say, I took a nice, hefty pay cut to get back into football, but it kind of ciphers off the different people that want to do it for fun or that can do it. And that's another thing, like, if you can do it, because those first years of doing it is hard. And you hear a lot of stories about guys sleeping on cots in the building just to get an opportunity. Like, it's probably more competitive than getting a scholarship offer.
Yeah, the sacrifice. So, like, that was my first sacrifice, moving back to Philly. And then I stopped doing that. That just was really tough. That wasn't sustainable, doing that night shift. So I got a job during the day, stopped coaching, and that whole time I'm trying to get back into it. I get an opportunity to make $10,000 a year. I was making way more than that coming out of college, but now I'm 23, get an opportunity at Princeton to make $10,000 a year to be like the assistant ops guy, live at home with my parents, move back in, which I'm fortunate enough that I was able to do that, and then commute an hour each way every day. So I did that for 2.5 years. I got Coach Sorace gave me another $5,000 raise, so I'm making $15K at 25.
At Princeton, where you work around future millionaires.
At Princeton. Oh, exactly. It was great. But like that whole time, I'm working camps during the summer. I'm reaching out to Penn State, trying to get back in, develop relationships with those guys. So my thing was, if I'm going to try to do this for a career professionally, you got to give everything you got. You got to sacrifice everything you have. And that's what I did. And, it was the same mindset as being a walk-on. You just continue to fight, grind, and keep going and staying consistent, giving everything you got. And stuff sometimes, it takes care of itself.